This conference will now be recorded.
What? What number? Oh. I don't know. I don't know. Good, to me ready to roll?
Oh, there's the other mic.
I got 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe we don't have any amendments to the agenda, so I need the adoption of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the amendment to the agenda.
I'll second that.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. We'll open the public comment portions. Individuals may address the city council about any items of concern. Speakers must state their name and limit the remarks to 3 minutes. Public comments. Okay,
My name is Sandra Bryant. I live at 617 West 8th Street. And I just want to state that I have great concern about the new utility ordinance, the water ordinance charging $3 per person per month for a paper bill. I am concerned about it because I'm very concerned that it's going to be inordinately affect the people who can afford to pay for it the least. It's going to hit our elderly hard because they don't keep up with technology. They have a very hard time keeping up with technology. As much as many of them try to, it's just very, very hard on the elderly. And it's also going to affect those people who have a very limited income and can't afford the technology. And so I would feel much more comfortable if we could spread it across everybody, even if the majority are not having paper bills. And I would be willing to go to electronic building if I could help somebody else. So that's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you. Any more public comments? Okay. I will close the public comment portion and we'll jump to consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine by council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. Accounts payable, Fred.
Yeah, I went over to Brian this morning. The only one I asked about is the Keller Bartman, $227,000, and that's just a pass through from the grant that was for them. And then, because it's got to come through the city and we get administration fees for that too, it sounds. That's the only question I had.
Yep, and we're gonna see a lot of those coming up, so as they progress.
Anybody else got anything? No other questions on it? I'll make a motion to approve the accounts payable of $311,171.06.
I'll second that.
I just have one quick question. It's probably a quick answer by Jeff. Is that GPM Incorporated repair, was that for a motor? For 8,300?
A blower.
A blower? Okay, that's what I figured, but I just wanted to make sure. Any more discussions on accounts payable? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. Thanks, Brad. Let's do old business. Ordinance 2026-06, revised utility billing ordinance. Kim?
Just exactly, nothing's changed since we talked about the last time. You were at the last council meeting. You were going to wait till you had council present to vote on it. So, same thing.
Does council have any questions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this before, the $3 thing. I mean, just gonna explain. Now, putting that on it, I said there's a cost for doing that, because when we raise our levy to cover expenditures and stuff, isn't that already getting covered in that?
This is
Like for postage and stuff?
That's in the water and sewer bills. Those are enterprise funds, so they are all responsible for their own fees. We do not levy for those, any of those costs associated with water and sewer, just so you know.
I mean, and I know we had a good example last month. We had how many bills that got lost? And Miranda and you and probably Miles had to deal with a lot of lost invoices, people paying late fees, taking it off, and then we had the postage and the paper on that. So that's kind of, it was a good example why I feel it's necessary, because we spend a lot of money and a lot of time on our utility bills that I feel would be efficient, that if we went electronically, it's there. There's a couple different ways they can do that. But if they still want a paper bill, we can still do it, but it's helping offset some of our costs by doing that.
But the $3 isn't gonna keep the lost stuff from changing at all. You're still gonna have that.
The chances of it, yes.
But having all these other people on electronic has saved us time anyway. And we cut the expenses that way, so.
But we still have several people,
Right.
several hundreds of people that are on the billing,
Yeah.
just because they haven't changed it.
And I think that's a good thing to do, is to try and push that to electronic billing. And the more we can do that, the less it's gonna cost, yes. Still not quite sure. I kind of agree with Fred with the $3. We're already saving some money, not all of it, but I'm not quite sure that's what we should be doing.
We have encouraged for years.
When we've tried, we've done a couple of blasts. It's probably been a year or two. But I know, because this has been an expense that I've felt that we can eliminate or completely downsize quite a bit. I mean, if $3 is $2, I mean, what's the price? But I just think there's other companies out there that charge you for an invoice, charge you for a bill, and they're $5 to $8. So, I mean, I think we're under that.
We've had several people come in since it was in the paper. Several people come in to get on to electronic billing. I don't know, you know how many or?
We've actually had quite a few people call to change to electronic billing. Last month, I believe there were over 200 bills that were lost in the mail.
And I got one at my house from not even on my side of the town, the same time we were talking about that. So it does happen. And also Miranda spends a lot of time getting them out. So, and I think that dollar amount's not even in postage. It hasn't even been figured into the expense of our utility bills.
Yeah, I think we were looking at $5 at one point, and that was a little bit more towards the labor involved as well. And we thought, well, that's a little too much for Zerona. I think during your discussions, you pared it back to $3. Yeah, and we had the discussions about the elderly people and people that don't have electronics, and that's exactly right, that there are going to be those. You know, I helped my mom with all that stuff. I put my mom on all these bill pays. You know, everything is automated, makes things much easier. Not everybody's got kids to help do that either. So, but there will be some. So you're exactly right that you know, it'll be hard for some. It's a few bucks. It's $36 a year. But it's an encouragement for a lot of people to make that change and get on electronic billing. And we've already seen it. So, you know, whatever the decision is, we'll carry it out.
So then on the other one going out, when we put the new water meters in, there was no option. They had to get a new water meter, right?
So we had that discussion as well. The water meters do not emit any RF signals at all. So we're saying that, no, it's not an option to not get the meter changed. We're going to change every meter. It's the reader that's in question.
But we
That does-
couldn't do that with the readers, just automatically put
Yeah,
there.
yeah, we could say, absolutely. We could say everybody's going to get a reader. But along the way, when we had these discussions, there was council sentiment that, well, we could give the option. If you want to take that and say, nope, we're not going to give the option, everybody's going to have the reader, everybody's going to have the meter, by all means. That was encouraged through the meter company. They said that's what most cities will just say, no, this is how we do things. This is,
Right.
the RF is less than a second a day. And the advantages that we get from having these meters are tremendous as far as, pretty much on demand. We can read them. We can know if there's a leak, which we're working towards having online access for the homeowners too, so they can look at it and see their usage real time as well.
And I understand all that, the positives of it and everything, but when they were given that option, were they told that if they didn't do it, it was gonna be $68 at that time, or this came later?
We never really finalized if there was an option. So you're exactly right. I think the discussion has still been ongoing. And then that brought up, we need to change the utility billing ordinance to reflect some things that need to be changed as well. So we're kind of dealing with it all together. They were not told there would be a fee. They were not told there wouldn't be a fee. They weren't told that, yep, you're going to have an option. We just said you might have an option. So I think, by doing the utility billing ordinance, or the utility ordinance this way, we would be saying that there's an option, but it's going to be $68. If we want to pull that out of there and make it, everybody's getting the reader and the meter, great. That simplifies things for sure.
If I remember correctly, I just got one in the mail, so I haven't got my meter changed yet. But that, if I read it correctly, it did state that it was mandatory to have done.
It did stated that the meter was, yep.
The meter and the reader were mandatory?
I don't think it broke it out.
Which to me would encompass the whole
Yeah.
unit.
Yep. So, yeah, no, absolutely. If we want to make an adjustment to the ordinance before we move forward with it, or you can vote on it as amended, and we can make that change and get it out there.
I'd rather see that, not just, that's the way we operate, and that's what you get. And I know you said that $68 is real steep to, if they vote or decide not to.
It's not steep, it seems steep, but it's cost. We knew if we were going to propose a fee that we needed to have backing on it. And so we just took the time and the equipment, and that's how we came up with the dollar amount.
That's what I would rather just say, it's mandatory you do it instead of raise the fee to, or,
Yeah, or
that's just the way I.
The fee only raises on the people who opt for the manual read though.
correct. Yep. If you want them to have a choice, this is what it's going to cost. Sorry, Miranda, Kim and Miles, I kind of stepped all over you there. These guys developed most of this, so they did the hard work, the heavy lifting on that.
Brian, you said that most cities don't allow the option.
They just simply say this is our.
That's what we're told by our meter supplier. Yep.
We're going to be setting the fee is set according to the fee schedule. So at a future time, we could change that if we found that it was too high or if it didn't encompass the hours. Is that correct?
Yep. That's why we're trying to set the fees up that way where we can, each year we're modifying the schedule. We can handle those things then without doing each ordinance.
Right.
So yes, exactly right.
I'm going to make that motion to approve ordinance 2026-06
As is?
as is.
I'll second that.
Do we have to do a roll call? No. Nope, not an ordinance.
Any further discussions, which we've talked about this? I think we've had it at a work session, another work session, a couple council members. So, no further discussions. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Passes 3-2.
Who was the other nay?
Bob and Fred.
Oh, Bob and Fred, okay.
6B, 2026-2023 garbage hauler request for proposals. Brian?
Yes, this is another one we've talked about several times. In our last discussion, we centered around whether or not we wanted to just open it up to any commercial hauler or whether we wanted to bid for one commercial hauler. Decided that it's been working well the way it is. So I modified it back to just what we had before. The last RFPs that we sent out, pretty much the same. I did add some language based on some other, and Mike and his team, Flaherty and his team helped tweak some things in there too from the legal standpoint. But basically bid residential. The low residential bidder gets the opportunity to negotiate with commercial properties for commercial hauling. And then the second lowest bidder also gets a license to negotiate with commercial properties in Zumbrota. And the reason that cities go to organized hauling is because we don't want these trucks running all over town, every day of the week, several different companies. So a lot of cities have gone to organized hauling, and we've been doing it since, I think 2015 was the first contract was 2015. And then again, 2020, right when I got here. And then, so looking for another 5-year contract, and I'm ready to roll with the, I was going to email them out to all of the licensed haulers that are noted on the Goodhue County website. And then we'll post it in the paper and on our website as well. So.
We just have one residential hauler in town now, right?
Yeah, just the way, I mean, it's
So somebody just asked me today, they said they've seen other garbage trucks in town or something.
So there are sometimes a different dumpster for residential, like remodel or things like that. And usually we're able to deal with those because that really should be with our licensed haulers as well. So, yep, you've seen it from time to time, but.
With the roll-offs, you mean? I mean, they can choose whatever roll-off company they want, right?
Well, we can debate that, but
It's been set up.
our residential hauler does do that. But yeah, you're right, that's separate from the billing. So there is some debate there. Everything will say just the way it is. Yep, just the way it has been.
I know I talked to a business manager last week, that he's okay. With the two, he wasn't happy with one of them, just for other issues. Not picking it up because their truck was there delivering, which was only there for 15 minutes, something like that. So he didn't want that hauler to be one of the two. I said, I really don't have control of that, but that was the only input that I had from a commercial. So.
I'll make a motion for the 2026-2031 garbage hauler request for proposals.
Second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. New business.
You ready?
Police officer requisition. Pat?
So I want to introduce you to the Grant Ruth family and their newborn Ainsley. And a couple of our officers got to meet them probably for the first time as well in March. And we're some of the first people to meet their new daughter as well. So, Officer Brecht and Sergeant Miner were both on duty. I think you were probably just a few days into working here. And this is kind of a rare experience to be part of the delivery of a newborn. And so we like to recognize that because it is quite rare, and it's certainly a good thing. So we want to recognize this particular call for service, and we're grateful that all that worked out very well.
We're grateful too.
Yeah. So, And we have SEAMS, our Southeast EMS here to help us with that recognition. They have a program that they do this with, and so we learned about that more recently. And Alex, is it? Yes. Why don't you come on up and.
Appreciate it. Mayor, council members, I appreciate the opportunity for this chief allowing us to come up. So Alex Navigance, Executive Director for Southeast Minnesota EMS. A lot of people go, I have no idea what that is. We're not an ambulance service. We're not a police department. We're not a fire department. We do a lot of continuing education for the regional services. So BLS ambulance services, we do continuing ed for them, about 17, and then 43 fire departments in the Southeast. A couple of the communication centers, we're kind of all over the place. So when people ask what do we do, it's usually advocacy. I think one thing that we need to look at is supporting them. Cities support their departments, but when it comes to EMS and the departments, we want to make sure that they're standing out, right? And I think one thing that we do is recognition, especially for the police department, fire department, EMS, and the dispatchers. We're all part of a system. If there's any piece of that system that doesn't work, things don't go according to plan, right? I think for this, not knowing too much of the backstory, right? This doesn't happen often, right? This is not within the scope of why they did what they wanted to do and go to school for. And, but, you know, I think this is one of those special opportunities and those calls that, you know, you've got this one end of the spectrum where it's a really bad call, right? You've got those terrible calls where on the other end, this is one of those calls that's going to stick with them forever. This is going to be something that they're telling their kids, their grandkids. So this is definitely something for them to be, you know, memorable of, but it's something that we need to recognize in front of leadership, local government and stuff to make sure that, you know, we enjoy what they do, even if it is sometimes giving me a ticket, but that's neither here nor there. You're not the state troopers. That's fine. I got it. I understand. But outside of that, I think this is one of those, we like doing this as small or as big as we possibly can to make sure that the providers are getting the recognition, the officers are getting the recognition, and making sure that you guys are aware of the services and the ambulance service, the fire departments, and they are an integral part of your city, your town, your community. So with that, yeah, third shift, right?
I think so.
All right. So these are just commendations from our office with our medical director, myself. They're awarded as a result of your successful assistance to a mother in the natural delivery of a newborn in the pre-hospital setting, presented on June 18th, 2026. And then it was correct. Right. The stork pin, what they got along with those commendations, it really is a symbol, right? Delivery of a child. For them, you know, if they had an ID or something, they'd be able to recognize that and carry that story. A lot of people ask, much like with the CPR Save commendations that we do, people ask, and those are usually we like talking about those stories. So that's kind of a visual reminder for them or anybody they meet that, hey, we had this call. We brought life into this world. Probably not part of the birth plan, I'm assuming. We were probably far away from what was intended, but with that, I appreciate you guys, everything that you guys do, Chief, and then council members and mayor, I appreciate your time. So with that, I'm done. All right. Thanks, guys.
Chief, do you want to take a picture quick?
Yes, yeah, I think that would.
You want to do that now? Yeah.
Sure. Not me.
Coming up here, or-
Yeah, we could just do it right up here. I think this is my third one that I've had since I've been on council.
We'll go right up there, and the family, would you join us for a photo? All right. We'll kind of crowd the area there.
You gotta make sure my eyes are open. This one, the last couple of the little.
All right, let's get everybody in this.
I'll say it.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Took a bunch just in case you blinked out.
Yeah, I know, that's, we'll have the problem.
Congrats, Breck and Minor.
Not even wait. Not even wait.
It's always fun seeing them. Well, mother probably don't want that, but it's always fun to see. Let's jump to 7B. Now we got to go to this one. The 2025 audit presentation by ABDO, Abby and Mara.
Oh, they got it up there.
Be a bit of a downer after.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Things to give out, nothing, but we will keep it succinct for you guys. So I'm Abby, this is Mara. We're from Abdo out of the Mankato office. So we are new to the city of Zumbrota. There's always a little more legwork on the first year, but Kim and staff have been great and easy to work with, super responsive. So for a first year audit, this went great. We summarized that super big PowerPoint or that super big audit report into a PowerPoint presentation where we'll focus on our audit opinion and responsibility as auditors, your general fund, other governmental funds, get into those enterprise funds, and then we compare the city of Zumbrota to a few of your peer groups at the end. So we issued an unmodified or clean opinion for 2025. We also opine on Minnesota legal compliance. There was one instance of non-compliance, but I'll touch on the next slide. But basically, as auditors, we have to say whether users can rely upon the financial statements to be correct and follow all the appropriate standards. And that's where that clean opinion or unmodified opinion came in. We report 4 audit findings for 25. Preparation of financial statements means we helped prepare that large audit report that Kim reviewed. And limited segregation of duties, smaller staff size. It's not easy to split out all of the different areas. So we are going to speak with Kim on some potential areas for improvement, but both of these findings are super common for smaller cities. The material audit adjustment findings, there were a few areas, especially with a change in audit firm, just going from a smaller firm to Abdo, where we found a few areas that were misstated that we corrected, and that's where that comes from. And then the last, there's a check endorsement declaration that should be on the back of every check that goes out from the city. That wasn't present, so we've talked to Kim. She's going to implement a stamp, I believe, until a new check stock is run. So we expect that to be corrected for 26.
Okay, so the first graph we got here shows the budgeted expenditures in the general fund in comparison as a percentage to the fund balance in the general fund. The only thing we really saw was in 2024, we saw a spike in budgeted expenditures, which is just for some upcoming capital projects. And then we did recommend that the city implement a fund balance policy, which just kind of sets up a minimum amount of reserves going forward. The next slide is the general fund budget to actual. So revenues came in over budget, which was due to a small cities grant and a para reimbursement for an overpayment and a League of Minnesota Cities reimbursement for the roof. The the expenditures came under budget due to some capital items that just didn't happen during the year. And then we saw an overall positive increase of around 500,000. This graph here shows the major general fund revenues. Tax collections were up in comparison to 2024 just due to the levy increase, and we'll see a similar increase in 2026. Grants were also down, which was due to some reimbursements for the Champa expenses in 2024. And then this one just shows the major general fund expenditures by type. So we saw an increase in the general government, which was due to the new deputy administrator role and some salary studies that were done in 2025. Public Works also saw an increase, which was due to some seal coating expenses in 2025. And then there was a decrease in the other expenditures just due to some transfers that occurred last year.
Moving on to your special revenue fund balances, I'll just point out a couple areas. I believe you're going to approve the closure of those two funds, the Grover abatement and the golf course abatement this evening, so that those two funds were closed. The only other one that had a larger fluctuation was the swimming pool, and that was due mostly to the transfer to the related project fund. Your capital project fund balances, a few I'll point out. The capital equipment decrease, that was planned for, and it'll build back up going forward. See, the infrastructure fund also is being built up with those infrastructure charges. The EDA sales tax fund paid for some pretty extensive bridge repairs, so there was decrease in that fund. And then lastly, the Northwest Water Looping received the grant from the Environmental Protection Agency. So those, you'll see the fund balance increase due to that grant revenue. Debt service funds, historically the city doesn't bond often. I know that there's a swimming pool bond coming up for around 4 million. So this is a look at your current obligations over the next 10 years. It'll obviously go up with that new bond issuance, but you'll see in a few slides when we get to the key performance indicators, Zumbrota does have a low level of debt overall. So I don't necessarily think that's a bad move, that the city can take it on pretty without a lot of fluctuation, I think. Your two enterprise funds, your water and sewer, you really want to see these operating like a business where those receipts are covering your costs. So the top graph shows where your receipts were compared to your disbursements. So your water fund charges are sufficient to cover your costs. You want to see that gap between your receipts and your disbursements because you're not levying in these funds. So those charges should be covering your costs and projects, repairs, maintenance, et cetera. So your cash, you can see on the bottom, has remained pretty steady, only fluctuates really when you have those bigger purchases that come up. So yeah, we also put in there a minimum target cash balance, which is essentially just saying, what would you need in cash to cover 50% or half of a year of cost, operating costs? You're well above that. I'm just meaning that you have good resources for any projects or maintenance items that come up. Similar case in the sewer fund. Speaking with Kim, I know that there's some expected bonding money in the future, so it's intentional to build up that cash to hopefully reduce, not hopefully, you're clearly doing what you planned, so you will be able to reduce the bonding or the debt that's issued. A quick snapshot, I apologize, if you look at the one on the right, that's accurate. We just had a typo that messed with the enterprise cash on the right. You did have cash in the enterprise funds in 2025, I promise. That is where the majority of cash sits, but that typically is normal to have larger reserves there because you aren't getting that new bond funding in as often, and those charges cover a lot of those projects and maintenance costs. Your key performance indicators. So we compared Zumbrota to other cities in the county and then other cities across the state of similar size. So on the left, we have where the tax rates have trended over the last 4 years. So really steady for Zumbrota. I will say that the dip in 22 to 23, I've noticed that trend across the other cities we work with as well. Market values increased quite a bit in that time frame, and so a lot of tax rates dropped. Zumbrota's remained very steady since, so really no concerns on where that's at, and you're pretty consistent with your peers as well. And the tax rate mix, that's more informational, just what are tax rates for the county, for the school, for the city, and how do those compare, and Zumbrota's pretty in line with the county. Your debt per capita, as expected, it's on the low end. This is where I was saying, I think there is some room for Zumbrota to issue that debt. You do have quite a bit of gap between the other cities. And on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit about where your current expenditures are, which don't include debt. So this obviously will increase a bit with the swimming pool, but you can see here your current expenditures are pretty in line with your peer groups and don't show a lot of large fluctuations. You don't want to have these fluctuate a lot because you want your levy not to spike and ebb and flow too much. That's a little tricky to explain, and so it's good to see that that's flat. And it's not like you have a larger amount of current expenditures because your debt is lower. You're still able to keep those in line with your peers, even though your debt's been lower. On the right-hand side, capital expenditures, again, that all depends on what you have going on for projects. So 23 was a higher project year. The other ones are pretty consistent across the board. Wasn't 75 seconds, but we kept it
Not bad,
short.
not bad.
Not bad.
Not
I'll
better
take
than the
a
old
not-
guy we used to have.
Okay, I'll take a not bad, I'll take it. But are there any questions, or Kim, did you have anything to add?
No, I was really concerned about going with a new auditor, and actually the process was pretty painless, and I feel like there's a lot of value added. I think we're going to get some standardized sheets and things that can make our audit go even more swiftly and smoothly next year, which is awesome, because as I begin to transition out, it's going to be nice to be able to bring in another person who has a standard that they'll be working towards.
Yeah, and I just want to vouch, because I know Kim was worried about getting a new company, because we had, is it Mark? We had Mark, and he did a great job, and she was worried, something different.
Yeah.
She was impressed that it was painless and.
Painless.
Yeah, yeah. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all the work that you guys have done, and.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing really has changed over the years in the standpoint of where we are with other cities and stuff like that, so it's.
I mean, no red flags. Sometimes enterprise funds don't have the charges at the right place to really cover what they need, but we're not seeing that in Zumbrota. You're pretty level all around. Not a lot of audit results is a good audit. You don't want to hear too much from us.
And Kim, you gotta give Kim all the credit for that, because she keeps us on the line on all that.
I could see
They have
that.
good workers.
No, she does a great job. Everybody's been super easy to work with, and we look forward to continuing to work with you guys.
Perfect. Any questions for Abby or Mara?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Let's jump to 7C, Resolution 2026-19, Leafy State Conditional Use Permit. Maya.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So the city of Zumbrota has received an application for a conditional use permit for a cannabis cultivation facility, which would be located at 16980 445th Street. Per our 2024 cannabis ordinance, the city requires that a conditional use permit is granted before it can operate. This facility would be used only for growing cannabis only. There'd be no retail business. We only allow cultivation facilities within our agricultural and industrial districts. And this location is an industrial one. It is actually past Highway 52. And this location also adheres to all of our buffer zones that we have. So schools, daycares, residential treatment facilities, et cetera, that we have set by our ordinance. It delegates all of our authority to Goodhue County for the administration of our ordinance, which we chose to do when we passed it initially. And so the county has verified that the applicant has coordinated with them to receive a permit. And as part of our conditional use permit, we are adding some conditions on that, which is very standard and normal. And those are basically that the applicant gets a state permit, a county permit, that they maintain them, and that they provide us documentation of said permits, which has all been done. We have received documentation of a state permit. We have verified that they have permits, and maintaining those will just happen as time goes on. The applicant has provided a filled out development application. We have received also a submission packet outlining details of the business operation and also a narrative discussing reasons to approve the request. And we held a public hearing on June 9th with Planning Commission. We heard no comments from the public, and the commission voted to approve the conditional use permit unanimously.
And if I'm at the right impression, Goodhue County does all the regulation and all that. That's when we passed that.
Yes,
Year.
and they do all the enforcement as well, so they handle everything. So I spoke with Lucas Dawling, who's the head of finance and taxpayer services, about this one. So he's, I think, headed up everything for cannabis ordinance for us related to.
And they're strictly growing, and that's it.
Yep. In their business plan, I don't know if I included it in the packet, but They kind of gave us an outline of what is going to go in every room, what's going to happen in every room. It's a small building. It's the old Schwann's building. There's not really a ton of room for retail anyways. And from a city perspective, I would say this is a really good spot for it. Past Highway 52, where all our industry is anyways. It's not the easiest place to get to, frankly. So, I think where we're looking at where we wanted to restrict cannabis in the first place, back when we passed the ordinance, this is exactly what we were looking for, is not going to be interfering with residential life, even commercial life. And, especially for cultivation, this is where it was intended to go initially.
You have a really extensive plan as far as odor control, all kinds of stuff, how they reuse the water. It's very in-depth, so it's very well done. But yeah, the city's part in this is basically zoning. Can it go where it's going to go? With a conditional use permit, yes. And then county handles all the other licensing and all that. Well, the county and the state.
And, I will add too, we receive a lot of calls about cannabis generally. I think that, if I were to pick my most called topic about zoning, it's cannabis related, because we get a lot of interest about different properties. And, I would say, again, 99% of them fizzle out. They don't get anywhere. Usually as soon as I tell them the process, it's basically squat after that. So, and I would say, working with Joe, he's been probably easily the most professional of all of them and the most prepared easily. When we asked for all these submission details, he had them right away and provided them to me ahead of the meeting before I even asked. And, I think that goes a long way for something like this too, because, it can be touchy sometimes. And so I think that was well appreciated.
I just got two questions. If they're not retailing it there, do they sell it to someone else who then processes it for resale?
I believe so. I don't know the details of that component for this one, but I know the county only issues a couple commercial or retail permits anyways. So I don't think there's anything around us that does a lot of retail. So they'd be shipping it somewhere else to sell, I believe.
Like Rochester, I know has got a couple of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they may even be growing it for medical too.
Yeah.
And then that's, I think, the different dispensary standard, but that's changed too with the laws a little bit, so.
And I guess my other question is there any legality to us or liability to us if we don't allow this, if we don't put a cup out, give them that?
I don't, and that might be something that Mike can weigh in on a little bit. I would say, looking at the conditional use permit, our cannabis ordinance that we passed allows it as a permitted use in these sections. I think you can still always deny a conditional use permit, but you need to make, specific findings as to why this would not fit, where it's going, what its intended use is going to be, things that could be liable in a court, because zoning code is technically quasi judicial. So it's not really opinion based. It's more so about what it actually is, where it's going and why. You can always say yes or no, I believe. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in this case, it's definitely up to you, I would say, but trying to make sure that we can make the correct considerations for a conditional use permit so that you don't have to say no generally. But Mike, do you want to help me out on the legality part?
Sure. So generally speaking, if there's a listed conditional use in a zoning district and the applicant is applying.
I can't hear you.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Still can't hear you, Mike. But I'm going to just say, I know when we did all the rezoning stuff, we were very particular of where we wanted it zoned if we did get that application. And I think this fits in where we wanted it very well. Because there's no way that we can really get around it. Can we say no? But I think when we set up the ordinances, we kind of made it a little bit tougher. But I think they've made.
It's
quality need to go up?
I will add too, we had a conditional use permit a couple months ago about a trailer home that was going to be going in a residential neighborhood. And so in that case, as an example, a reason to deny it was that, well, in that case, residential living is permitted. You're allowed to do that in a residential zone. And there was a lot of other considerations about like the building. They needed to build something. Well, does it meet our other building standards or other general code? That led to a reason, like those are findings of fact that we can say, we can deny this. In this case, there's already a building there. It already meets our general standards. It's in an industrial area. We have conditions that have been satisfied already. I think when you look at those types of things, legally, saying no, I'm not a lawyer. I can't say either way, of course. But I'm just a staff opinion, I would say, is just that maybe worrying a little bit, but obviously it's a council call, of course.
Try again, Mike.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So Tom from the news record could hear me, just not you guys. So the answer is just almost no, never can you do that. So there's a real bad echo coming through, so it's hard for me to speak. I'm sorry. Oh, it went away. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So generally speaking, when there's a listed conditional use and the applicant within a zoning district in your city code and an applicant is applying underneath that conditional use, you almost always have to grant the permit, but you can regulate the use with conditions. And so the first question is, does the application fit within a listed conditional use? Yes or no? And that question can sometimes be vague if the listed conditional use is vague. So for example, if it says manufacturing facilities, then the question is a cannabis cultivation business a manufacturing facility or not a manufacturing facility? And how does your code define manufacturing facility? So Miles, in this case, the listed conditional use, I believe, is cannabis cultivation, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have a listed conditional use in your code for the zoning district where this property is located that says cannabis cultivation, then you cannot deny it. But there is rare exceptions to that. And I think one of the exceptions would be if they cannot get licensed through the state. And so typically what you would do is you would grant the permit anyway, but you would put a condition that the operations cannot commence without a license from the state of Minnesota Office of Cannabis Management. But if the applicant didn't provide that license at the time of the application, I think in theory you could probably deny it. But generally speaking, once there's a conditional use listed in a zoning district and the applicant falls within that use, you have to regulate that with conditions on the permit. You can't just deny it because you don't like it. If it's in your code, you have to grant it. But like I say, there could be unique circumstances where there's other legal reasons, such as the applicant can't get licensed, for example, if they were a felon. And you had that fact, I think you could probably deny it in that instance. So in this case, I don't think there's I haven't seen any legal reason to deny this. It's a listed conditional use. I think you have to grant it, but you can impose reasonable conditions related to the performance standards in your code. And that's what a conditional use permit is. So no different than if it was a permitted use. If it was a permitted use in a residential district, somebody wants to build a house, you can't deny their building permit. You made your code, so then you have to live with that. But conditions are reasonable. Conditions for this facility could be reasonable here. Does that make sense? So I don't know who asked. You guys are so small on the screen, I can't tell who asked the question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I asked that, so appreciate it.
Any more questions on this topic?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2026-19.
I'll second.
Any further discussions? Roll call. Bob? Joan?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Brett?
Hey,
Passes 500. Thanks, Miles. Let's jump to 7D, Resolution 2026-20, transfers to closeout Fund 260, Golf Course Abatement Fund 261, Grover Abatement. Kimberly.
Back in the early 2000s, they wanted to get highway business across the highway. And during that process, they moved the Grover dealership over there. And we purchased the Grover lot, and there were several lots with that they would purchase. That was funded by the water fund with an interfund loan, and out at the golf course, some of that was funded with the sewer fund with an interfund loan. Over the years, those were all paid back, but the balance sheet, for whatever reason, did not reflect that. So as we've been going through cleaning up this audit, there were 2 outstanding balances. Does not affect the cash, does not, it's like a due to this fund, due from that fund kind of thing. And we needed to get that cleaned up for the audit. So this resolution makes those transfers to close out those funds. And then we're doing that as retroactive as of the end of 2025. So that's in the audit already.
Just a new audit, just they're different standards. We have just got to clean things up.
We're cleaning up everything, which that's nice to see those things off the sheet. We don't need balance sheet for funds that have been done for years, so.
I'll make a motion for resolution 2026-20. Second.
Any further discussions? Roll call, Bob.
Aye.
Joan.
Aye.
Kevin.
Aye.
Fred. And I passes 500. Oh, let's do 7E, ordinance 2026-10, revised peddlers and solicitors ordinance. Basically, we just need to set the public hearing for next council at 6:05 on this. So I just think it's gonna be a next council meeting, whatever. It's actually gonna be what, July, what do we look at, 16th? We only have one meeting that month. July 16th at 6:05 to discuss that peddler, so I just need a motion in a second.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 500. 7F, council standards of engagement. I'm gonna send that to Miles, because I know Miles and Brian can help. I know we've been working on that. I know we've had a couple maybe borderline issues over the last few years. So that's why this topic kind of came up. So I'll let Miles run with it. I mean, you probably saw it in your packet. I mean, we can spend half an hour on it or 3 minutes, but it's just kind of protecting our standards. We're in public social media that becomes such a big factor. I mean, there's some things that we all want to say on social media, but we just need to bite our tongue and go from there. So if Miles, if you have anything you have to add, run with it.
Sure. Well, I'll say I'll give a lot of credit to our next chief, Tony Pasquale, who actually he suggested this back in January, February, because he went to a conference and they had done it in some other cities, and he thought it was a great idea. And so he brought it to our, Brian and my attention, and we kind of just drafted it up and kind of brought it to you a couple months later. And Todd kind of touched on it, but this is basically just kind of like standards of conduct for council, for staff, how we present things, how we conduct ourselves in meetings, how we represent our roles with the city and with the public. And I think it's, it's pretty important, as we move forward in the day of social media. You hear stories of other communities and things that go on there. And, having some standards is a nice thing to have, because this is something, in the future, whenever we eventually get another new council member, that this is something we can show them and say, here, by the way, here's our standards of engagement. If we get a new staff member or turnover, we can do the same with that as well. Same as like a personnel policy in a way. And so I think it's a pretty simple policy. We can kind of do it, at council's will. It can be changed pretty easily. But I think it's a good idea that Tony brought up, just to have these standards that we are all conducting ourselves with as staff, as council, and especially engaging with a more engaged public in a lot of respects, so.
Any questions? Just need a motion in a second. You kind of approved the council and staff standards of engagement.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0-0. Oh, sorry.
You're a nay on that?
I'm a nay on that.
Okay, okay.
4-1. Good call.
And this will be something I use for onboarding too, if we have a new council member, new mayor. This will be a good document to use in the onboarding package as well, so.
Set July budget work session. Just a quick date. I know with one council meeting in July, I just kind of figured, how does July 23rd look? I would do 5:30.
Thursday.
Yes. Then, I mean, that was just one day, I just figured keep stuff on Thursday. But we could also do that Monday, the 20th, right, Brian? Is that one that we said?
Yep, no meetings in here then. Mondays are always good.
So I'm just kind of throwing another one in them. We're gonna do an hour again, in and out, short, sweet, unless Kim wants more. She gets more, that's the only person.
Depends if you guys have memorized the budget yet. There will be a quiz.
Kev, how was your schedule look for the 23rd?
Still pulling it up, sorry. 23rd, if we did it, I have a meeting at 7. If we did something, it only goes an hour.
5:30 to 6:30 works for you then? Joan?
So let's just go with yes,
Okay.
23rd.
Fred? Bobby?
I can make it work.
I mean,
You gotta take me to the airport the next day.
as long as it's after 7 o'clock in the morning. No. So let's plan on the 23rd, 5:30 to 6:30 for a work session, I assume budget.
Yep,
And
budget.
Brian always adds 2 or 3 more things.
Well, yeah,
Just a heads
it'll be posted as budget and then other business as may arise.
up. 5:30 to 6:30, perfect. Reports,
Me?
as long as it's short.
It is. The construction fencing is going up at the pool right now. We should see demo on Monday, or demo start on Monday. So we'll be off and rolling, and that'll kick loose the fundraising committee. They wanted to see some action out there before they get out and try and raise more excitement. They want to see some things happening so they can say, hey, go take a peek. This thing is happening. So they'll get going on that once the demo starts. And then we will call for sale of the bonds at the July 16th meeting. We're still going to be on schedule for receiving funds early August. So that should work out well as the bills start rolling in. That's it.
Perfect, thanks. Chief?
Just want to report tomorrow, our application process for sergeant closes at, I think, 4:30. We have one applicant so far. We'll see if any more come in yet tomorrow. Our hopes is to connect next week to schedule potential interview dates. So I think our goal is, if we have a candidate that we're going to move forward with, who knows? Maybe by the next meeting, we'll have somebody with a job offer. We'll see what happens. So, but that's all I got.
Perfect. Thanks, Chief. Jeff?
Nothing in there.
I see we got the streets repaired. I had one person that was happy.
Everything's ready.
Yeah, Larson was done too, which I saw, which I had somebody call and I called Jeff. So they were happy and glad. They were just happy with that answer. So thanks, Jeff. James? Kim? Miles?
Nothing today.
I have one quick thing before everybody goes. I'd like to get an updated council picture. I know it was just about I've been trying to get that and we've been gone, so I'd like to get that before we go. We'll get that on the website. Yeah, right now. I just did. Bob, Joan, Kevin,
Nothing.
Fred?
I just got a question on the crosswalks. There's bags over the,
Yeah, if, was it the collaborators they ordered? So, yeah, with the pulse or whatever, they're gonna redo everything at this point.
because the ones in the back, they still work. I see people are pushing them and lights are going on.
Yeah, I think it's kind of intermittent, so that's why they kind of bang or whatever. They close it to safety precautions again. I know there's, I would hit multiple times, 5, 6 times and also on the ground.
Do you want to take the pictures and give it to Brenda? Perfect. Anything else, Fred?
Nope.
Meeting adjourned.
Did he tell you?
Do it right here. I know, I was thinking, I'm like, we gotta